They thought humans were a forgotten legend, until we returned to wage war. Part 1. In the year 4782 of the Galactic Concordance calendar, the great species gathered on the shining world, called Valor Prime, to mark a special day. The leaders and scholars came from every corner of known space to celebrate 4,000 years since the final pacification. The giant halls glowed with soft lights, and floating images showed old battles long won. Everyone felt proud and safe because the galaxy had become peaceful after one last hard fight. The main speakers stood on a high platform made of clear crystal. The oldest Cathari elder stepped forward first. His kind had 6 strong arms and hard shells that shone like metal. He raised 2 arms high and spoke in a calm, deep voice. 4,000 years ago, the coalition faced a terrible enemy, he said. They called themselves humans. They came from a small blue world near a simple yellow star. Produced creatures who loved war more than peace. They built ships that moved fast and weapons that tore through shields. They refused to stop, even when defeat stared at them in the face. The crowd listened quietly. Some young ones from gentle species shifted in their seats. They had heard this story many times, but always as a tale to scare children. The elder continued. We, the Cathari, led the final attack, he explained. Our fleets surrounded their home system. We called it Sol back then. We sent warnings many times. They answered with silence, and then with fire. In the end, we turned their planets into glass. Nothing green grew there again. No human voice spoke after that day. Scholars searched every corner of the ruins. They found bones and broken machines, but no living humans. The species died out completely. A tall insect being from the Vren hive raised one claw. May I speak? She asked. The elder nodded. She stepped up and projected a new image. It showed a dark museum room full of old human things. There lay twisted metal helmets, cracked plasma rifles, and faded flags with blue and white stripes. These are the last remains, she said. We keep them here so young minds remember what happens when wild creatures refuse reason. Humans fought with teeth and fists when their guns ran dry. They used rocks and broken pipes against our soldiers. They screamed names of lost friends even as they died. No other race showed such madness. The crowd murmured softly. Older ones nodded because they remembered parents who fought in that war. Younger ones looked at the images with wide eyes. They felt glad those days ended long ago. A small feathered scholar from the Aerith world spoke next. Humans were not smart in our way, he explained. They built no grand networks across stars. They did not share minds or live for thousands of years. They lived short, angry lives and died young. Yet in their short time they spread fear farther than any calm species ever did. We learned from them. We made stronger laws. Promised never again would one race try to destroy another. Laughter came from some corners, because the idea sounded funny now. Who could threaten the Concordance now? The fleets numbered in millions. The science stations watched every star. The peace held firm for 4,000 years. Trade flowed. Trade ships crossed arms of the galaxy without fear. Pirates vanished because no one wanted trouble. The old wars became dusty books and hologram shows. Children played games where they pretended to be brave. Cathari warriors defeating silly human monsters. Everyone smiled at the thought. Then the great bell rang to signal the main feast. Tables stretched long and low. Food from 100 worlds filled every plate. Sweet fruits from warm moons, spicy meats from desert planets, cool drinks that glowed softly. Music played soft and steady. Guests talked about new colonies and fresh discoveries. No one spoke of humans anymore. The name felt old and harmless, like a story from before anyone alive was born. High above in the control tower, a young technician watched screens. His job was simple. He tracked ships and signals all day. Nothing exciting ever happened. Today felt the same. Then one screen blinked. A tiny dot appeared at the far edge of the map. It sat in the dark space between arms. No known route led there. No friendly beacon pulsed. The dot moved slow but steady. The technician frowned. He tapped controls to zoom in. The signal carried strange waves, old-style jump echoes mixed with something new. The computer searched its memory banks and found a match. It showed red warning lights. The drive pattern matched human ships from the old records. The technician felt cold. He checked again. The match stayed perfect. He sent an urgent message to the Elder Council. The words appeared on their private screens. "An unknown vessel has entered scan space," he wrote. "Drive signature matches human design. Probability 98%. The elders stared at the words. Some laughed nervously. Others sat silent. The oldest Cathari elder stood up slowly. His shell clicked as he moved. "We must send a ship," he said. "Let us see what this is. Perhaps it is only an old wreck, or a trick from a rival group." A fast scout ship left Valor Prime within the hour. It carried sensors and polite greeting messages. The crew felt curious more than afraid. They expected dust and silence. What they found changed everything. The scout jumped to the edge and dropped out near the signal. A single ship waited there, black and sharp, with no lights. No flags waved, no voice called. The ship looked new, yet old at the same time. Its lines matched pictures in the history vaults. The scout sent the standard peace signal in every language. "Welcome, traveler. Identify yourself, please." No answer came. The black ship turned slowly. It aimed sensors at the scout and scanned once. Deep, powerful beams passed through hull and crew. The scout crew felt naked and small. Then the black ship jumped away. It vanished clean. Without a trace, the scout stayed alone in empty space. Back on Valor Prime, the elders waited for news. When the scout returned, the captain marched straight to the council chamber. He looked pale. His voice shook as he spoke. "They scanned us," he said. "No weapons fired, no threat came, but they left a message. It arrived on every channel at once. Clear, perfect trade standard, with strange old words mixed in." He played the recording. A calm human voice filled the room. "We remember the glassing of Saul. We remember the names of every world you burned. We have not forgotten. You will." Silence fell over the chamber. No one moved. No one spoke. The elders looked at each other with wide eyes. The myth walked again after 4,000 years of sleep. The forgotten legend opened its eyes and looked straight at them. The celebration ended that night. Lights dimmed. Tables stood empty. Guests left quickly without goodbyes. The great spire felt cold and quiet. Everyone understood one simple truth. Humans never truly went away. They waited, they remembered, and now they returned. Word count 1,350. They thought humans were a forgotten legend, until we returned to wage war. A Cathari survey frigate named Harmony's Grace received orders to check the strange signal at the edge of the Perseus Arm. The ship carried a crew of 40 seasoned officers and scientists. Most had never seen real combat. They trained for exploration and rescue, not war. The captain was an older female named Lyra Shek. Her shell bore faint scars from training accidents long ago. She trusted her sensors and her crew above all else. The jump went smooth. Harmony's Grace dropped out of hyperspace exactly where the map said. The anomaly sat quiet in deep black space. No debris cloud, no energy flare, just one small signature pulsing steady. The scanners locked on fast. The ship looked alone. No escorts, no support beacons. Lyra Shek ordered full scan, passive first, then active if needed. The bridge crew watched screens. Numbers rolled. Data streamed. Shapes formed. The vessel appeared sleek and dark. Broken glass. No hull lights glowed. No exhaust trails showed. It matched every old record from the final pacification files. Drive core harmonics identical. Weapon ports hidden, but present. Size larger than expected for a scout. Yet no aggression came. No targeting lock. No radio challenge. Lyra Sheck felt calm at first. She spoke soft. Perhaps an old drone left behind after the war. Maybe salvagers playing tricks. Send standard greetings, she ordered. Open all channels. Use trade standard and old human dialects if the computer knows them. The communications officer sent the message. Welcome, unknown vessel. This is Harmony's Grace of the Galactic Concordance. Please state your registry origin and intent. We come in peace. Repeat, we come in peace. The words went out on every band. Wide beam, tight beam, even visual flashes. Nothing came back. The black ship stayed silent. Then the unknown vessel moved. It turned slow and precise. No wasted motion. Sensors on the frigate lit up. Across the hull. The scan felt deep. It pierced shields without effort. Crew members reported odd tingles in their limbs. Instruments flickered for 3 seconds, then steadied. The scan lasted only 8 heartbeats, then it stopped. Lyra Sheck leaned forward. What did they take, she asked. The science chief checked logs. Everything, he said. They read our entire database. Ship schematics, crew files, weapon specs, even personal messages. No damage done, just read and gone. Before anyone could speak again, the black ship jumped. It folded space and vanished. Clean exit. No wake, no residue. Harmony's Grace hung alone, in empty dark. The crew stared at blank screens. No one spoke for a long minute. Lyra Sheck broke the silence. Get me a direct line to Valor Prime, Priority 1. She knew what came next. Reports like this never stayed quiet. The elders would want every detail. Hours later on Valor Prime, the council chamber filled again. The celebration lights still hung dark and forgotten. Many species sat in tense rows. The recorded scan data played on the main holo. The black ship turned. The beams swept. The jump flash ended. Every eye watched the same few seconds over and over. Then the message arrived. It came at the same moment on every world in the concordance. Every screen, every communicator, every public board lit up. No source traced, no encryption broken. The words appeared in perfect trade standard, with strange old accents woven in. We remember the glassing of Sol. We remember the names of every world you burned. We have not forgotten. You will. The message repeated 3 times, then vanished. Screens went dark again. Silence gripped every chamber, on every planet. No one laughed this time. No one called it a hoax. The voice sounded calm, cold, certain. It carried no anger, only promise. Panic moved slow at first. On smaller worlds, people whispered. On trade stations, merchants checked contracts. On military bases, officers pulled old files. In the core worlds, leaders stood at attention, waiting. Met in secret rooms. They argued for hours. Some said stay calm, others said prepare defenses. A few wanted to send envoys with gifts and apologies. Most agreed on one thing: the myth lived. News spread fast across the nets. Civilians learned within minutes. Forums filled with questions and fear. Young ones who once laughed at human stories now searched archives. Old vids of the final pacification played again. People watched in new ways. They saw human ships charge into impossible odds. They saw soldiers fight with broken limbs. They saw cities burn, and still the defenders refused to kneel. On Valor Prime, the Cathari Elder Council called an emergency session. The oldest one spoke first. We must assume this is real, he said. If humans survived, they hid well. If they return, they come angry. We need facts, not fear. Send more ships, wider scans, alert every fleet base, double sensor nets around key systems. Orders flew out. Fleets mobilized. Scouts jumped to the edge. Patrols increased. Worked day and night. They dug through ancient data. They rebuilt lost translators. They tested old human weapons captured long ago. Nothing prepared them for what came next. 17 standard hours after the first message, the same words arrived again. This time, on every military channel, every civilian band, every emergency frequency, all at once. Perfect sync across thousands of light years. No delay, no lag. The message carried no signature, yet everyone knew the source. We remember the glassing of Sol. We remember the names of every world you burned. We have not forgotten. You will. This time, leaders felt true dread. The concordance spanned arms of the galaxy. Signals took days to cross, even with fastest relays. Yet the message hit everywhere together. Only one power could manage such reach, an enemy who mastered space in ways no one else did. On a distant mining colony, a lone worker watched the sky from his dome. He saw nothing at first. Then a shadow passed, quick and black. Sound. No warning, just gone. He reported it. Local command laughed it off as nerves. Yet similar reports came from a dozen other outposts. All described the same thing. A dark shape that scanned and left. The Cathari Admiralty gathered in a shielded room deep under Valor. They reviewed every scan, every jump trace, every message pattern. One analyst spoke quiet. The drive signatures match human records from 4,000 years ago, he said, but improved, beyond our current tech. They jump cleaner, they scan deeper, they hide better. The room stayed silent. The admiral in charge finally spoke. We face ghosts, he said. Ghosts with teeth. If they wish war, we give them none yet. We watch, we wait, we learn, but we do not sleep. On the streets of core cities, people gathered in small groups. They talked low. They looked up at stars they once ignored. Parents held children closer. Teachers paused lessons to answer sudden questions. Old soldiers felt aches and scars they forgot they had. The galaxy held its breath. Somewhere in the dark between arms, a single black ship waited. Engines cold, weapons ready, crew awake and alert. They sent no more words yet. Their message already echoed in every mind. The legend woke. The forgotten ones remembered. And the ones who burned Sol would learn soon enough what memory cost. Word count, 1,350. They thought humans were a forgotten legend until we returned to wage war. The galaxy learned the truth in stages. At first, scouts reported shadows, then patrols vanished, then whole systems went dark. The Concordance admirals gathered data and tried to stay calm. They told themselves humans could not return in force after 4,000 years of silence. They told themselves the black ships were only scouts or ghosts or tricks. Yet deep inside, every leader knew better. Then the first real fleet appeared. It came without warning at the edge of the Orion Veil, a quiet region used mostly for training exercises. Concordance sensors caught the jump signatures too late. Thousands of them, all at once. Space tore open in a perfect line, and human vessels poured through like water from a broken dam. The lead ship measured 30 kilometers long. Its hull looked blacker than the void itself. Angles sharp enough to cut light. Engines glowed faint blue with power no one recognized. It came. More thousands. More dreadnoughts the size of small cities. Carriers that released swarms of tiny fighters. Cruisers fast and deadly. Frigates, nimble and mean. Support ships that looked like floating factories. Nothing matched current Concordance designs. Everything looked better. The Orion Veil Defense Fleet numbered 200 ships. They formed up quick. Shields flared. Weapons charged. Commanders shouted orders expecting an easy win. Numbers favored them. Tech favored them. Experience favored them. They moved to intercept. Human ships did not slow. They accelerated straight at the Concordance line. No fancy maneuvers. No clever flanking. Just raw speed and straight intent. The first human dreadnought fired. A single railgun slug left its barrel at near light speed. It crossed the gap in seconds. The lead Concordance battleship vanished in a silent flash. Metal turned to plasma. Shields popped like soap bubbles. Panic spread across Concordance channels. Voices overlapped, contradicted each other. Some ships tried to jump away. Others fired wild salvos. Human fighters arrived then. Small, agile craft piloted by beings who pulled turns that should kill flesh and bone. They danced through laser fire. They slipped past missiles. They struck weak points with precision beams. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, the Orion Veil glowed with wreckage. Concordance hulls drifted in pieces. Human ships stayed mostly untouched. A few showed scorch marks, but none lost power. The victors did not cheer. They did not loot. They simply turned and jumped onward, leaving silence behind. News reached Valor Prime in under an hour. Priority channels screamed with loss reports. Admirals stared at screens showing red icons everywhere. The Elder Council met again. Faces looked gray. Shells clicked with nerves. One admiral spoke first. "They are not remnants," he said. "They are an armada. They rebuilt in secret. They improved everything. We face a new power." Wreckage confirmed the worst. Human ships used materials unknown to Concordance labs. Drives bent space in ways thought impossible. Weapons ignored most shields. Pilots endured forces that crushed normal bodies. The black ships carried no flags, yet everyone knew the builders. Humanity had not died. They had hidden. Survivor fleets escaped the glassing of Sol. They fled into the long dark between galaxies. They found nebula clouds thick enough to hide whole worlds. They buried arc ships under dense stars. They woke in shifts. They bred new generations. They taught children the old names. They trained them to hate and to wait. They studied captured alien tech. They broke it down. They rebuilt it stronger. They engineered bodies that survived vacuum and hard burns. They built factories that never slept. Population grew from thousands to billions, all in silence, all in secret. Now the waiting ended. The first wave hit hard and fast. Systems fell one after another. Human fleets appeared. Jumped, struck, vanished, before reinforcements arrived. They targeted shipyards, command centers, fuel depots, military targets only. Civilians watched from planetside as orbital stations burned. They saw human dropships land. Marines in black armor stepped out. They carried weapons that hummed with power. They moved fast. They spoke little. They took what they needed and left. On one occupied world, a Concordance governor tried to negotiate. He met the human commander in a ruined hall. The human stood tall, gray hair, short scars across his face. He listened to the pleas, then answered simple. "We do not want your worlds. We want justice. 4,000 years ago you voted to end us. Now, we collect the debt." The governor asked for terms. The human smiled thin. "You live if you stand aside. You die if you fight. The choice belongs to you." Most chose to stand aside. Word spread through the galaxy. Species that once ruled now hid. Young ones who mocked human tales now learned fear. Stories again, but this time, the monsters won. The Concordance tried to rally. They called every fleet. They begged allies. They offered rewards. Nothing stopped the advance. Human strategy stayed clear. They did not conquer land. They destroyed power. They shattered navies. They cracked fortresses. They left civilian cities standing. Yet every world that voted for the glassing received one gift. A single kinetic rod dropped from high orbit. Tungsten spears, the length of towers. They hit with force that shook continents. Craters marked the strike sites, deep enough to see mantle rock. People called them reminders. On Valor Prime, crowds gathered in the streets. They looked up at the sky. They waited for the end. Lights stayed low. Voices stayed quiet. The great spire felt small and fragile. The elders met one last time. They argued plans. They searched for hope. None came. Then the next message arrived. It played on every screen. A human admiral stood on a bridge. The viewport behind him showed a gas giant with shattered rings. Pieces still burned in orbit. He spoke calm and clear. 4,000 years ago, you decided we were vermin to be exterminated. You were wrong on both counts. Vermin survive, and we are not vermin. The feed cut. The galaxy understood then. The legend never died. It waited, it grew, it returned, and it brought every memory with it. Human ships kept coming. More every day. New designs appeared. Some carried weapons that bent gravity. Others launched drones that thought for themselves. Boarding pods struck capital ships. Marines fought in corridors. They laughed as alarms screamed. They fought in zero-G. They fought in smoke. They fought until the enemy stopped moving. The Concordance fleets shrank. They lost battles. They lost admirals. They lost hope. Species began to talk of surrender. Some already sent messages begging peace. Others prepared to run. Yet no one knew where to run. The humans watched every jump lane, every hidden base, every secret. In the dark of space, a single human marine sat in his pod. He cleaned his rifle. He checked his suit. He thought of Earth. He thought of names carved on old stone. He thought of children who would never know the glassing. He smiled small. This war would end soon. Not with mercy, not with conquest, with memory. The stars watched quiet. The galaxy held its breath. The forgotten ones walked among their old killers. And the killers learned what 4,000 years of patience cost. Word count, 1,350. They thought humans were a forgotten legend until we returned to wage war. System after system fell to the human advance. The Concordance tried everything. They built new defensive lines. They mined jump points. They sent suicide fleets loaded with antimatter. They begged neutral species for help. Nothing worked. Human ships appeared where least expected. They struck fast. They left ruins. They moved on. The war became known as the Reckoning. Not a conquest for land. Not a grab for resources. A settling of old scores. Humanity targeted the heart of power. They hit shipyards that once built the glassing fleet. They destroyed command bunkers where the final pacification orders came. They shattered academies that taught young ones humans were beasts to be crushed. Every blow carried meaning. Every target held history. On the core world of Thalor 9, the Cathari High Matriarch broadcast surrender terms from her shielded palace. She spoke on open channels. Her voice stayed steady. Terms, generous terms, trade rights, safe passage, amnesty for leaders. She promised to rebuild what was lost. She asked only for peace. The message went galaxy-wide. Many worlds listened with hope. The human flagship, Vengeance Unbroken, received the offer. The bridge crew watched the feed in silence. The admiral stood at the center. He looked old. Gray hair cut short. Deep lines on his face. Scars crossed one cheek. He wore no fancy uniform, just plain black, with a single patch showing a blue planet, cracked but whole. He listened to every word. Then he turned to the main viewport. Behind him a gas giant burned. Its rings lay broken. Huge chunks drifted slow. Fire glowed where kinetic impacts hit. The admiral raised one hand. The camera followed. He spoke calm. 4,000 years ago you decided we were vermin to be exterminated. You sent fleets. You dropped rods. You turned Sol into ash. You watched from your safe worlds and called it necessary. You taught your children we deserved it. Now look at your rings. Look at your worlds. You learn what necessary feels like. He paused. The silence stretched. The matriarch waited on her end. The admiral continued. We do not want your thrones. We do not want your stars. We want memory. We want truth. From this day, every child in every species will learn the name Sol. They will learn the vote. They will learn the glassing. They will learn why we returned. If you break that promise, we return again. And next time we bring more than rods. The feed cut. No explosion followed. No immediate attack. The human fleet held position. The matriarch sat frozen. Her aides whispered fast. She knew the price of refusal. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played. Human commanders met local leaders. They spoke plain words. They showed old records. They pointed to craters on human worlds. They asked one question. Will you teach truth, or will you force our hand? Most answered yes. Some hesitated. Those who hesitated received reminders. Single tungsten spears fell from orbit. Struck empty plains. Deep craters formed. No cities died. Yet the message stayed clear. On smaller worlds, civilians watched human marines walk streets. They wore black armor that shifted color to match shadows. They carried rifles that hummed soft. They spoke trade standard with strange old accents. They took no slaves. They stole no wealth. They guarded hospitals. They fed the hungry. They stopped looters from their own kind. They acted not like conquerors, like judges. One Marine squad entered an old museum on Gathara Prime. The building held relics from the war. Human helmets, scorched, rifles, broken flags. The Marines stood quiet. They touched nothing. They read plaques. They saw lies written in stone. One Marine spoke low. This says we attacked first. This says we refused peace. This says we were monsters. He turned to his squadmates. We know different. They left the museum untouched, yet that night new data appeared on every screen. True records from soul archives, long hidden. Warnings ignored. Footage of pleas denied. Footage of children burning. Footage of last stands. Names, lists, dates, every fact laid bare. No edits, no spin. The galaxy saw the other side. Panic turned to shame on many worlds. Leaders who once bragged about the final pacification now hid. Young ones asked hard questions. Parents struggled for answers. Teachers changed lessons overnight. The concordance crumbled not from weapons alone, from truth. Human fleets pressed deeper. They reached the inner arms. They orbited capital worlds. They blockaded trade lanes. They let food ships through. They stopped warships. They showed mercy mixed with steel. Species watched and learned. Humanity fought without hate. They fought with cold purpose. They spared the innocent. They punished the guilty. In one system, a concordance fleet tried a last stand. 20 capital ships formed a wall. They charged forward, weapons blazing. Human dreadnoughts met them head-on. Railguns spoke first. Concordance shields collapsed. Cruisers split open. Fighters swarmed. Human pilots pulled impossible turns. They laughed over open channels. They sang old songs from Earth. The battle ended in minutes. The human fleet jumped away, leaving survivors to think. Word spread. The humans did not kill for joy. They killed to end threats. They left escape pods. They left lifeboats. They broadcast coordinates for rescue. The message stayed simple. Fight us and lose everything. Stand aside and live. On Valor Prime, crowds filled the great plaza. They looked up at the sky. They waited for rods that never came. Instead, a single human shuttle landed in the central field. No weapons showed. No troops marched out. One figure stepped down, the admiral from the broadcast. He walked alone. He carried no gun. He wore the same plain black uniform. The elders met him in the open. They stood on the steps. He stopped 10 paces away. He spoke loud enough for all to hear. Your war ended 4,000 years ago. Ours begins now, not with blood, with change. Teach truth, or we teach it for you. The High Matriarch stepped forward. She bowed low. We will teach, she said. We will remember, we will change. The Admiral nodded once. He turned. He walked back to his shuttle. The craft lifted quiet. It joined the fleet above. The humans did not leave. They stayed. They watched. They waited. The reckoning continued. 9 months total. Blitzkrieg across stars. Worlds surrendered. Fleets stood down. Leaders knelt, not from fear alone, but from understanding. Humanity returned not to rule, but to end the age of easy death, to make genocide a memory never repeated. In quiet moments, human soldiers sat on alien worlds. They looked at strange skies. They thought of home. They thought of lost families. They thought of children, yet unborn. They smiled small. The debt collected. The legend closed one book and opened another. The stars stayed silent. The galaxy changed. The forgotten ones finished their task, and the ones who burned Saul carried the scar forever. 1,350. They thought humans were a forgotten legend until we returned to wage war. The reckoning ended after 9 months of swift, unrelenting strikes. Human fleets pulled back from most systems. They left garrisons only on key military worlds. The rest of space became quiet again. Ships no longer jumped in waves. Weapons stayed cold. The galaxy exhaled slow. Many waited for the next blow. It never came. Instead, humans called for a gathering. They chose the broken moon of Luna, once the cradle of their homeworld, Earth. The surface still bore scars from ancient glassing. Deep craters marked old cities. Silver dust covered everything. Yet humans built there again. A simple dome rose tall. Clear walls let stars shine through. Inside, a round table waited, seats for every major species. No throne rose higher. All chairs looked the same. Delegates arrived under truce flags. Cathari, Vren, Aerith, and dozens more. They walked through rebuilt halls. They saw human workers repair stone. Low gravity. They felt strange calm. No guards carried guns. No scanners searched bags. Trust came slow, but real. The council opened on the first day. A human woman stepped to the center. She wore plain gray. Her hair showed silver streaks. Her eyes looked kind, yet hard. She spoke in clear trade standard. My name is Admiral Mara Voss. I speak for what remains of humanity. We did not return to rule. We returned to stop the cycle. You glassed our worlds. You called it peace. We answered with fire. We call it justice. Now we offer a new path. She raised one hand. A hollow appeared above the table. It showed 3 simple lines. The first read, "No species shall ever be named vermin or marked for death." The second read, "The story of Saul, the warnings, the vote, the glassing, shall be taught true and complete in every school on every world." The third read, "If any power rises to repeat the old crimes, humanity will answer. We will not wait 4,000 years again." The delegates listened without interruption. Some nodded slow. Others looked down. The Cathari elder spoke first. His voice stayed low. "We accept these terms. We have seen what refusal costs. We will change our histories. We will teach our young the truth." One by one, others agreed. The Vren hive mind sent a single pulse of consent. The Aerith sang soft notes of promise. Smaller species followed fast. No one argued. No one walked away. The oaths were sworn in silence. Each leader placed a hand on the central stone. A faint glow marked the vow. The galaxy bound itself to memory. Luna became the new heart. Not a capital, not an empire seat. A reminder place. Ships came from far stars. They brought scholars. They brought records. They brought apologies. Some sincere, some careful. Humans accepted all. They asked only for honesty. On worlds once proud, now quiet classrooms opened. Teachers stood before screens. They showed old footage. They read old votes. They spoke of children who died in fire. Young students listened, wide-eyed. Parents answered as best they could. Shame turned to understanding. Understanding turned to resolve. Never again became more than words. It became law. Humanity did not take tribute. They did not demand tech. They did not station armies everywhere. Instead, they shared what they learned in the long dock. New drives that bent space gentle. New materials that laughed at plasma. new medicine that healed broken shells and wings. They gave freely to any who asked. They asked only one thing in return: teach truth, protect the weak, remember Saul. Trade bloomed fresh. Routes opened safe again. Markets filled with strange goods. Human coffee mixed with Cathari spice. Aerith songs played beside Vren chants. Laughter returned to stations. Fear faded slow but steady. The stars felt different. Not smaller, not safer, just wiser. In quiet nights on Luna, old soldiers walked the crater rims. They looked at Earth far below, a blue marble scarred yet beautiful. They thought of names long gone, lost in the First War. They thought of children who would grow without that pain. They smiled small. The debt was paid, the cycle broken. One Marine sat on a low wall. He cleaned an old rifle. He looked at the stars. He spoke soft to no one. We waited 4,000 years. We built in shadows. We trained in cold. We dreamed of this day. Now it is here. We can rest. Not forever, just enough. Children ran past. They laughed. They chased glowing drones. They knew nothing of glassing yet. Soon they would learn. Soon they would carry the memory, not as hate, as caution, as promise. On Valor Prime, the great spire stood repaired. Lights glowed warm again. Crowds walked the halls. They stopped at new exhibits. Hollow images showed soul before the end. Green lands, blue seas, busy cities, then the glassing, then the long silence, then the return. The last image showed the Luna table, the oaths, the new beginning. People looked and nodded. They understood. The Admiral Mara Voss stood on a balcony. She watched ships come and go. She felt tired, yet content. Her people scattered across stars now. Some stayed on Luna. Some returned to rebuilt Earth. Some explored new arms. Some simply lived. No empire rose. No emperor ruled. Just humans being humans. Stubborn, inventive, relentless, kind when allowed. A young aide approached. She carried a small box. Inside lay a shard of old Earth glass, fused from the first strikes. Mara took it. She held it to the light. It caught stars. It held memory. She spoke quiet. We came back. We waged war. We won. Now we keep watch. Not with swords, with truth. The aide nodded. She left Mara alone. The Admiral stayed there long. She thought of the title once whispered in fear. They thought humans were a forgotten legend, until we returned to wage war. Now the war ended. The legend stayed. Not forgotten, not feared, just present, always present. The galaxy turned slow. Worlds spun. Stars burned. Time moved on. Memory remained. The forgotten ones became the Watchers. The Watchers became the Guardians. The Guardians became part of everything. No one dared dream of genocide again. Not while humans breathed. Not while Luna stood. Not while children learned the old names. The stars carried a quiet truth. The legend never left. It simply waited. And now it rested with open eyes, ready if needed, never gone. Word count, 1,350.